Welcome to the Branding for Abundance podcast. My name is Dr. TK. I am a licensed clinical psychologist and success coach. My goal on this podcast is to simply teach you how to proclaim your victory in your relationships, academic and career endeavors, business, money, and your mindset. Learn some simple tools and techniques to brand your life for abundance and live your epic lifestyle. Welcome, everybody, to the Branding for Abundance podcast. This is Dr. TK, your host, and today we have a special guest, and her name is Dr. Rosche. So I want to give you some background as far as how me and Dr. Rosche met, and she's on the line right now. This is more of I'm going to say an unorthodox podcast in that it's actually going to be a behind-the-scenes conversation, and I thought it would be cool for me to share it with my listeners. And so Dr. Rosche is on here. We met in grad school. We were actually in the Bay Area. That's where she is from, and she can tell you a little bit about herself in a moment. But we met at Argosy University, and I remember the first time that I saw Dr. Rosche, she was filling out paperwork to complete her admissions into the clinical psychology program, which was a PsyD program that we were in. And then the first time that she interacted with me, which I'll let her tell you that part, was during our orientation. And I guess I was standoffish to everybody because I was going through it, y'all, with some allergy situations, and no one knew that. And so welcome, Dr. Rosche, to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Well, hello, Dr. TK. I am doing well. I'm excited to be a part of this podcast.
So you want to give the listeners a little backdrop about how we met? Because I always think it's funny when we talk about relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic ones, because everybody always has like two different sides of the story.
Definitely. So when we met, this, what I recall was very similar to that. Dr. TK, all I remember her saying she was from Compton, and then she was like mean looking. Right. Now, it turns out that, it was because she had allergies and stuff. And it's so interesting that even that you can have like maybe a first impression of somebody of being maybe unapproachable or whatever the case may be, because of whatever they may have been going on temporarily in their lives, that it ended up turning out to be something like, completely different. And she's the closest person that I had, that became my bestie from, graduate school, which is such a trip. But that day one was like, I don't know about her. But, literally probably maybe a week later or so after we were in classes, then we kind of had that almost that inseparable situation where it's like, I'm at your house all the time. Like we hanging out and we're dreaming together. And so just the fact that, that was back in, we went to grad school in 2005. Just to see like some of the things that we thought about together, dreamed about together, had conversations about, to see that our lives had really like grown into the people who we were like hoping to be and desiring to be. It's just like so exciting right now.
Blows my mind. So we had an acronym that we went by, and then it changed. Yes. So the acronym for all the listeners, it was called BBD, and no, it is not Belle Biv DeVoe, but it was BBD, Beautiful Black Doctors, specifically because in our cohort, I specifically remember it was about 60 people in our cohort that was admitted in 2005, and only 12 of us graduated from our cohort within the 4-year time span. Some people were extended, and then a lot of people were that, ABD, all but dissertation. Yes. And so it was me, you, Teresa, one of our other friends, Frank, and then our other group of, we'll call it the diverse group, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And, but Dr. Rosche and I created a bond over the couple of years that we were in grad school together, along with also being placed with one another in practicum sites and things like that. And so we started calling ourselves BBD, which stood for Beautiful Black Doctor. And I think we made up that name like second or third year or something. And it literally traveled with us until I think it was 2 years, about a year and a half ago, when we spoke at the Los Angeles Women's Expo.
Yes.
And we renamed it BBP, Beautiful Black Psychologist, because a lot of people assumed that we were medical physicians. Yes. And if someone was sick, they started asking us all these questions. And we were like, no, we're focused on the sickness of the mind, so let's change it up. And that's what we're known for now. So let's get to know Dr. Rosche a little bit better. So what actually inspired you to become a clinical psychologist?
So let me give you a little background about me. So, Dr. Rosche Brown, I'm actually from the Bay Area, as Dr. TK has already said. And what kind of led me to being a psychologist is kind of all kind of different levels of what happened. But overall, I come from a crazy dysfunctional family, like most of us do. I grew up in deep East Oakland, right, which was the underserved area in that way. And there weren't many people in my family, nor people in my community who were going to college, or even some of them not even graduating high school. But with all of the different dysfunctions that I was seeing, levels of crime, levels of substance abuse and everything, I knew that we needed support and we needed help. And just naturally in my life, I was the one who people talk to and learn information from at that time. And I was my way out of the hood is going to be to get an education.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So that's pretty much what happened. And so I went off to Xavier University in New Orleans. I went out there and I was psychology pre-med. So my initial level was I'm going to be pre-med. I'm going to be a doctor. Somebody going to call me doctor. But I didn't really know how to go about doing that. And in that process, Xavier really kind of teaches you. And I had a change of heart, really life changed me and shifted my direction from going to medical school and then ended up going to graduate school. But I was already psychology pre-med. So I had a bachelor's degree in psychology.
So you made a huge pivot.
Yes. a little bit of a pivot because instead of going medical school versus grad school, a good thing is I had the foundation of psychology. That was already there. I took all my psychology courses and I actually had a degree in psychology. But my minor was chemistry because I had to take a lot of science courses to get into medical school. So there was a big pivot, a shift, right? When life gives you lemons, hey, make some lemonade.
Right.
And so amazing is that even though it was something that I wasn't expecting, my freshman year going into college, who I am today was because of that shift, was because of that pivot. And so I was able to go to grad school and really psychology was super aligned with who I was, who I already was doing, what I was doing naturally in life, my natural nosiness about learning about people, but also wanting to help fix them and help work with them. So all of that kind of really came together.
I want to go back to the word you said about alignment, because for 2020, that's actually part of my motto is walking in alignment with who you truly are, who God and or the universe created you to be.
Yes.
And so can you tell us about how you found that alignment, meaning what type of work have you been doing in the mental health field over the last 15 plus years?
Well, initially I think I started when it comes down to alignment is with people who were like me. Right. So having, grew up in the hood and have a lot of experience and exposure with people who are in crime and substance use. That's where I started, so I started in Richmond, working with kids who, really were I was able to be relatable to because I understood their experience, because I lived a lot of their experiences. So I really started there working with high school students, then later on wanting to broaden my scope of what I knew how to do. So I was I wonder what severely mentally ill people look like. So then I started to work with them. Then I came back and I worked with a different culture, right? Majority of my clients were low socioeconomic status. And they were mostly, Black and brown. But then I was I wonder what it's like to maybe work with, the white population. And so I actually started working with them to see what their issues were. Right. Then I ended up, moving into all kind of different things, into the prisons, working with veterans, working.
You worked for part of the PET team, right?
Say it again.
The PET team? The team?
Yeah. So I worked with the mobile crisis team. Then I ended up going into the psychiatric emergency services team to see what does it feel like in the 5150 land. So 5150 from the street, 5150 in the actual hospital, 5150s in the prison, So I really started to, just kind of broaden my horizon and get and experience a lot of different things. And to see what really felt good to me over time. And so that's kind of what led me to a little bit more about what I do now. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a little different, it was stuff that I was starting to see a whole lot.
Yeah, I know based off of our history, because I want to pivot this conversation to actually introduce our listeners to what you're currently doing now, as far as being a renowned author, you're a speaker, and you're also really big in the financial industry. And I think it's very interesting because in our previous conversations, of course, when we met, we would do fun things together. We would talk about money, making money in the future together. And I always noticed that had been a passion of yours to talk about what does it mean to really live a financially abundant lifestyle. And so how did you get into the financial services or industry?
So, I mean, interesting enough, Dr. TK introduced me to it. So like, I don't know if you remember, you introduced me to the process, but
January kickoff.
Yes. I think, the funny thing is like you said, money has always been a passion. So the concept of saving, money has always been something. And even just to go back into my history of, like I was saying, substance users and all that kind of stuff in my family, I was the one who held their money. Like, hey, Shay, can you hold my money? I was the one who subtracted and say, well, you use this much money. You only got, $20 left. Are you sure you want this last 20? So I was always this person in my family. People, would borrow little money from me when I only had little, like $5 and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, oh, I heard about this thing called interest. So I was always like excited about learning these things. I remember, first time I learned about taxes, like, McDonald's it was $2.99 and they were saying they needed $3.24. I was like, what they asking for more money, So it's like, I always had this interest and this excitement around money anyway. And then when we start working with, clients in the Richmond area, Oakland area, different areas, I also recognized it was a big struggle of most of my clients. Like a lot of them, younger kids never really being taught anything about money. Especially I used to work a lot with foster youth. They would get different, gift cards and all this kind of stuff. And they didn't know what to do or how to spend the money. And one of my biggest pet peeves used to happen when I was younger is going to the grocery store and only having $50, but going to the cashier and you spent $75, right? And then you got to say, oh, can you take that back? Can you take that back? Can you take that back? Oh my God, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And so seeing that happening with my clients, I was like, no. We're going into the store together. We're going to do the little mental calculations of how much you actually have.
So you integrated finances into the therapy treatment.
That was my therapy treatment. So I've been doing this for a long time. Even sitting with, I had private practice and I would sit with clients who were having a lot of financial stress. And it really hit me like financial stress and mental health stress, they are the same. They go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. So if you can boil it, I wonder if, because I know that you have so much information regarding finances, how people can live more abundantly, save money. What are three main points? Because that most of my listeners are within the mental health professional, but I also have, listeners that are interested in mental health. What are three main points that you can share with my listeners about money mindset?
So, here go, for the mindset aspect is number one, first believe that you are worthy and that you are deserving of abundance. That is huge right now. What you think about, you bring about, right? And so when we're in that state in our minds where we kind of only think about bills and think about, money from a negative area, then we find ourselves always not having a good relationship when it comes down to money. So I would definitely say just believe that you're worthy. And that you're deserving of having abundance, despite everybody else around you not having that.
That's good.
So that's definitely number one. Another thing to think about is this is number two. This is more of a practical step. Is that it's not difficult to manage your money, right? It's get that out of your head. That it's difficult to manage your money. A lot of times when I sit with people, they always oh, I have more month than I have money. Right. So it's always it's just, I can't do it. I live in the Bay Area. It's always something, that people just automatically just think that it's just too difficult to manage their money. So they just don't even try. They don't even try. So really kind of get that state out of your mind that it's just too difficult to do it. And then the third thing that I would say is kind of as a change of your money mindset and me, and Dr. TK have talked about this, and I'm pretty sure you talked about it in the other podcast, is just the level of affirming, right? That's an area affirmations are extremely important. One of the coaches we used to work with, you say, I make money easily and effortlessly, right? So one area of money mindset, I believe that when it comes down to our money, we have two different ways of getting it together. There's there's the deprivation way, right? Where we got to cut back. Don't drink Starbucks. Don't do this, right?
Right.
There's that deprivation model. Like you got to deprive yourself in order to have, right? And there is some benefit to that, right? So there's certain things that maybe you shouldn't be doing, right? I'm looking at right now, like being in a difficult time as coronavirus, shelter in place. People are at home all the time. Like, boom, no nails done, right?
Right.
Hair not done. People, your eyelashes not done. You know what I'm saying? All these things that you would have been spending money on, right? Maybe you're not eating out as often as you used to. All of those things are levels of savings. And if you could like use this forced time and start to develop a habit that once we get out of this forced shelter in place time, that you can start to say like, do I need some of those things? Like, do I need?
I so love that. In part, I don't know if you've seen it on like my social media. I post often like in my agenda, and I wanted to share something with you before you go to the other side of the deprivation.
It's your wealth story, because I've seen that yesterday.
Yes, listen. So I got this from somebody that I listened to on podcast. It was one of her podcast episodes, but I loved how she captured it because it really helped me make decisions as far as even regarding business and personal, how and where I invest my money. So she talks about wealthy now or wealthy later. And what I did is I just looked at what she said. I put it on a pretty pink sheet of paper in my agenda. And I actually list out things that I want for my business and for my personal life. But then I ask myself these following questions before I actually make the purchase. So one of the questions that I ask myself is, does it bring me joy now? So for example, you mentioned like the nails, like, yeah, looking at my nails right now does not bring me joy. But if I look back at habits, and I wasn't a real big nail person, but some people are. I'm a big hair person. So do I need to spend that much money on the extensions for my hair? Do I need to get the extensions for my hair redone with a new, batch of hair every 30 days? Or can I just reuse the hair? You know what I'm saying? And so it just, when you said that, it made me think about it, because this is a time where I've also personally been forcing myself to ask those questions, wealthy now or wealthy later, because it's honestly giving me the ability to look at how I'm actually spending my money and how frivolously I was spending my money on things, more so frequency, not that it wasn't a good spend, but how much I spent in the frequency. Definitely I'm getting a different outlook. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a question that we always have to ask. Like, is this a need or is this a want?
Right.
So I am known for like a lot of acronyms. And so I do have an acronym for need. It popped up in my head. But what is a need? A need is something that is necessary. Is necessary. E for your empowerment, right? It helps you to do better. It also and the empowerment, does it encourage you, or does it help with your development? That's right. Good. So you actually want to think about that for like, what is your actual need? Is it a need? Is this going to make you become better? Is it going to make you help you to do better? Right? Is it going to help you to grow? So you always want to ask that, because not everything is a need, right? Like my nails are not like a need. And I am a huge nail person. I was a nail and a hair person prior to COVID land is what I've been calling it. Right? But I feel like, now that I'm like, my nails aren't done, it's not bothering me as much as I thought it would bother me. Mindset. Right? Like I'm able to live, and I literally probably have frequently had nails going on like 10 or so years. Like, wow. Like I never even had a break. My nails, this is my first nail break in about at least 10 years.
Wow.
And so for the fact that I was able to do that, and I feel okay, I still feel gorgeous, I still feel pretty. I don't feel, like, oh my God, something's missing inside of me. And I think that's something that we really should look at too, is like, even like going into more of natural hairstyles and different things like that. Like, a lot of our levels of attractiveness were actually tied up in all these things. Mm-hmm. And now that these things are not here, are you like still feeling attractive about yourself? Are you still able to really develop a serious self-love, right? Mm-hmm. That's not external in nature, but it's really that internal like level of self-love.
Right.
So I think that's some of the things we gonna check ourselves on.
Right. So I know that you said it was another side. I'm waiting. You said deprivation is one side. What's the other side? Come on. I'm like, tell me.
Keep track with it, Dr. TK. So yeah, deprivation is like, okay, like we got to cut back. But the other level is prosperity.
I love it.
Prosperity. right? Because we need to increase cash flow within our lives. You have to increase cash flow. So if you're one of those people who say that there's more month than there is money, then you need to figure out how to increase some cash flow in your life. And there's, multiple ways to do that, right? So some of us may need to get an extra job, right? We are in a service-oriented community. You can Uber, you can Lyft, you can Instacart, there's so many different things that you could just do on the side that doesn't require a significant level of commitment, but you can still make some extra money. So find those areas, right? I've been telling people like right now, like even when it comes down to COVID land, you literally can Google. I've done it several times. Google, opportunity, work opportunity and employment opportunities for this particular time. There's things that are increasing right now that you're able and capable of being a part of. So go ahead and do that, even if it's just temporary, right? So maybe you only go Instacart for like 3 months, but allow that 3 months for you to be stacking in lowering down your debt as well as saving some money, right? Learn about how to invest. It's so interesting because even though I've been in the money game for a while, at this point, I was not really like a huge stock person investing. I think there's different levels of investing, right? Everybody should have the investment number one for everybody would be get yourself an emergency fund, get yourself a high yielding interest account. You can Google what is the best high yield interest account. Like we often, mention American Express and Synchrony and different things like that. Go and find stuff that's going to give you 1.5% at this point and more.
Yes.
A lot of them been giving even more than that. But like a couple years ago, they were at 2s and 3s.
Exactly.
But get yourself into that game. That's number one for that emergency fund. Another thing that you guys want to get into are what are called index funds. And so everybody should get life insurance. Life insurance is important. They have what are called indexes. So if you have a 401k and it needs to be rolled over into something, get an indexed annuity. If you have money, if you don't have life insurance right now or you're self-employed and you need to have a retirement, get yourself a life insurance policy, particularly an index universal life insurance policy.
I want to put a buzzword in there because I often refer to it, and I want specifically my mental health professionals to understand what this word means. When we say vehicles, you need to have multiple. What Dr. Rosche is explaining is that you have to have, sorry, y'all know how I get down. You have to have multiple vehicles for your money. All of your eggs should not be in one basket. All of your eggs should not be in your previous employer's 401k. One of the things that I learned while I was in the financial industry with Dr. Rosche is that they gave us the analogy of when you date. It was a lot of women in the financial industry in this particular meeting. And I remember one of the ladies said, when you break up with a guy, do you leave your stuff over their house? I mean, maybe petty people, but not grown women, right? And so if we don't leave our blow dryer over there, if we don't leave, my hair over there or more prized possessions like my purse and my shoes, then why would I leave my 401k at my old job? I need to take all my stuff with me. So stop leaving money on the table and find appropriate vehicles that are going to have a good long-term prosperity outcome for you later. But thank you for bringing that up because the word vehicles comes up a lot. And I wanted them to understand what that is. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes I say multiple vehicles, sometimes I say multiple buckets, right?
Yes.
We need to have multiple opportunities to make our money grow for us, right? And so when you emergency fund, I can easily touch it, right? So we need that for if an emergency was to happen. Even small emergencies, like your car tire can go out. That's like a minor emergency compared to losing your job. But when you're not prepared for that car tire, it will make you take away from daycare, make you have to ask somebody else for some extra money. And now we'll put you into debt just because you didn't have $200.
With $200, let's talk about the individuals who would like to live the prosperity lifestyle, but maybe the savings account doesn't match. Because I know premium cars, because we've had our share of multiple cars in our lifestyle having a good time, is we just got the truck fixed. And my husband, he wasn't exposed to that type of car. You know what I'm saying? And so when he took the car, I warned him. I already had the money set aside, literally like once a year. I just need to set it aside like 3 to 5 racks for this car. And he thought I was crazy. And so when he went, I said, if it goes over like $1,000, just call me. And he was like, $1,000? He said, well, what are you trying to get fixed? I said, a tire. or whatever. He was like, what? Oh, I never told you. I'm sorry. So he took the car and he called with all, I swear it was like a lot of emojis if he would have texted me. But he was like, they said this freaking bleep, bleep, bleep tire is $1,000 with tax. It was $1,100. I said, welcome to luxury vehicle lane. Yes. Because everybody wants to run around and get these $500 to $800 car notes, and they're not looking at the longevity of, even if it's a lease, and let's just say if it's not covered or things that you do on purpose to your car is not covered, you have to pay for that getting fixed, you know? Yes. So yeah, I ain't saw no tire for $200 since I had my Nissan Stanza that was in 1989.
Well, girl, I mean, you know, so we're luxury and we're very premium. Now keep in mind, not everybody's like us.
No, right? but I just mentioned that because we are in a time where a lot of, I'm gonna be real, people that look like us, we tend to go, we tend to like things that are nice. And there's nothing wrong with that. My listeners know I love nice things. But at the same time, sometimes when you're talking about money game and money prosperity and thinking through your finances, a lot of us just look at the $500 note. And when you said emergency fund for little things, that little thing can turn into $1,000 one tire and you need four.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to highlight,
Yeah. I mean, to me, this is my biggest issue. And that's why I said even $200 is the fact that most people can't put their hands on $200.
Right.
That's huge, right? Like there's people who literally will be falling apart because they can't put their hands on $200.
Right.
And that is a problem. We, and some of you guys, do a quick self check, you know what I'm saying? At yourself and say, like, do I even have $200 sitting in my my emergency fund?
That's good.
You know what I mean? Let alone try to get 3 to 6 months, which is the recommended amount, right? Do you have even 1 month of your expenses sitting there, right? So if something happens and you're unable to pay your mortgage or your rent, like, because, even just something simple, the government shut down at one point. So you had a government job. There was 2 pay periods that these people didn't make no money. Right. We're in such a crazy time right now that we would have never expected. But COVID land, people like losing their jobs. Right. Like and I remember shelter in place. Shelter in place started in March and we are in May and we still in shelter in place. Like who would have known that now that is potentially some people just got laid off. I mean, I just went talking about premium luxury vehicles because I ain't been driving mine. My battery went out. And so I took it to the shop and it was so interesting because there was like nobody there, right? Because it was like nobody's buying cars, right? So it doesn't mean that these people probably completely lost their jobs, but for like now 2 to 3 months, they will not have jobs, or be having any income coming in because they're not needed anymore. And who would have thought? I mean, it was significant. I'm like, dang, I just got my car serviced like 3-4 months ago and this place was packed. And now there's barely anybody here. There are only 2 service people.
Can I chime in for a moment? It's a statement and a question because you mentioned that you went into a place where typically it's probably swarming with people, whether it be buyers and or customer service representatives or salespeople, right? And I cater my coaching services specifically to mental health professionals. And you know well as I know that we work in various places. We always make the statement of we will never be without a job, but considering what has happened currently, depending on where some of our clinicians have chosen to work, you actually low-key may be without a job depending on what happens in our world. So you always have to have different vehicles and run your ideas with not just getting, focused on just like one job. And the one area that I'm looking at, because you gave the example, is of where we did our practicum. We worked at schools. Where are schools at right now? They're online. And so, yes, therapists may be able to, quote unquote, set up scheduling appointments with their clients. But what about people who see little kids? What about people who don't have access to internet? What about those of us who are working with the inner city population and these kids don't have a safe place to meet to talk about the same stuff that we talked about? And or maybe the school districts have to lay off some people. So I'm not saying don't work in schools, but be very mindful of what Dr. Rosche is sharing, that you always have to make sure that your money is straight behind closed doors. So before we tell people where to find you, because I know they're probably trying to figure out how can they work with you, I do want to give our listeners a bonus. And you didn't even expect this, but I like surprises. So I want to share with them more so not cars, but more so lifestyle, abundance, and prosperity. And on my feed often, and I know on your Facebook, up until probably I'm going to say like the end of last year, we were doing a lot of traveling over the last 15 years. And one of the things that I wanted to bring to my listeners' attention is that it's really important to have positive circles of influence. Yes. This is something that we learned early on, but we didn't know the name for it. And then when we realized the name for it, we started teaching it to everybody like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to recognize who you hang around with. So I want not necessarily to share stories more so, but just to share, can you shed some light on how important it is to have that person that you can call and they have the financial abundance to get up and go. Whether we have kids, husband or not, we can still lead.
I mean, it's huge, you guys. I mean, I would think about it like Dr. TK said, like positive circles of influence was something that we were experiencing and not really naming it. And I would go kind of venture to go back all the way to the beginning, like in grad school when me and Dr. TK actually met one another. You know, it's a big difference. Like she mentioned that 60 people were in the program and only 12 of us actually graduated on time. Well, why was that? Right? 12 of us graduated on time because of particularly me and Dr. K were the first 2 people in our class to actually get our dissertations completed. Right. But why is that? Right? Because I was connected to somebody who now our conversations is about making sure our dissertation is doing. So we might be at a club and enjoying life and having fun, but we like, hey, you gonna get your dissertation done? All right, we got this, because it's already part of our system in our conversation to just be about that life, And so I think that what ended up happening over time for both of us is that we both start making money, start having jobs and having somebody to talk to about that concept, right?
And being okay with talking about your money to someone that's safe.
Right, exactly. To somebody who's safe. Yes, exactly. And I mean, that's the great thing about having a friend who has money. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is a person who has income producing abilities, right? Because that makes it a lot easier to be able to talk about money. It's harder to talk about money, whether you're in a downtime or a good time with somebody who doesn't know how to produce income. Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because that means that when you're in a downtime, you don't know how to ask this person like, hey, what should I be doing to make some extra income? Because they don't even know how to do that. Right. You know what I'm saying? They don't even know how to make income. So it's really important to have good friends. They often say that you're the average of the 5 friends that you hang around with the most. Right. And so when you have a friend who's able to financially bring in abundance, then that means you're going to be able to bring in abundance. If you have a friend who now we're exposed to traveling and says let's go ahead and travel, then you're able to do that. Right. I remember my first year of working a real job as a doctor and making money and feeling a little stressed out, a little overwhelmed with life. And I'm like, I need a vacation. And none of my friends were in the position that I was in to be able to go nowhere. Right. You know what I mean? My first one, I had to tell somebody else hey, I'm going to pay for you. That was how serious it was. Because I really was on this vacation and my money was up, but their money wasn't. Right. But then to get to the place that, me and Dr. TK, we both making money. So now hey, you want to go? And it's
right. What did our mentor say? She was like, y'all play hard. Right. When she saw
And the funny thing about our mentor was you must have got that from this was years of us constantly traveling. Me and it's so funny. Somebody just mentioned on Facebook today, where would be the first place that you would probably go after COVID land? I was like, I'm probably gonna go see Dr. TK. I just tagged you in a post. Right. Because I'm keep in mind, I live in the Bay Area. She lives in LA, Southern California. And so for us to be so far apart, we probably still see each other more often than friends who are down the street from us. Right. You know what I'm saying? We still so going to LA to me is me being hey, let me just go an hour away from something. It's not even.
Just go to Richmond from Oakland.
Right. It's not a big deal. And there was friends of ours who literally lived an hour and a half away. And I was like, I don't feel like driving. But then I would fly. To LA, and it didn't seem as big of a task.
Right.
So definitely get yourself some good friends so you can enjoy life, right? And you don't feel limited because they are limited.
And this is why I'm so big on community. You know, you've been a guest speaker and you'll be a guest speaker some more. And we have some surprises coming up for the Adult Therapist Tribe community. So for those of you who are waiting for the doors to open for our open cart, it will be opening up soon. But Dr. Rosche, you will see her up in there. So for the time that they've been waiting for, how can they find you on social media and how can they work with you?
So definitely. So on Instagram, I am Dr. Rosche, but it's Dr_Rosche, and you're going to know this name, Rosche.
And we'll put all the information in the podcast.
Rosche. And then also you can just find me on Facebook. Dr. Rosche is my business page, but if you would like to follow me personally, it's Rosche Brown, Rosche, last name Brown, Brown. I know a lot of people keep those things separate, but I feel like, when it comes down to business and my life, they are like one and the same. If I don't want y'all to know, I ain't going to tell nobody. Right. You know what I'm saying? Social media is not for that. It's for business. It's for prosperity and cash flow. Right. And then also, I often give free 20-minute personal financial check-ins, right? So if you're like, oh, I'm in a bad place, I'm not really so sure how I am with my finances right now, and I just want at least a check-in, right? And it's very expensive to, find a financial advisor or find a financial professional. But I'm here for you for at least 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and check in. You can go to my Calendly link, which is CALENDLY.com. And you're going to go to /Dr. Rosche, which is DRROSCHE. Definitely get on my calendar, check it out. If you want to, you can go to my website, drrethinking.com. Might be a little bit easier because I am the doctor of rethinking. I help people to remix their thinking.
Love it.
Way of living. So go to drrethinking.com. You can also get on my calendar from there if that's a lot easier for you.
Nice. Yeah. So not to worry for the listeners. She has multiple ways, multiple vehicles to contact her. No excuses. And so we'll definitely make sure that all of the listeners are able to get all of your contact information and that they will definitely check you out for the up to 20-minute free consultation to look at their finances and also to educate them. I'm going to put this out there to educate them on these different vehicles, because the fact of the matter is a lot of individuals listen to podcasts all the time. Do they take notes? I'm not sure. Do they actually implement what they learn? 9 times out of 10, probably not, because they're binge listening, especially right now. So I'm going to make sure that they have all of the links so that they can get in contact with you. For all of my listeners, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. We'll make sure to put you in contact with Dr. Rosche. And again, if you want more information on the Dope Therapist Tribe, please make sure to check the show notes. I have additional information for you because I do have a video series coming up at the end of May that will introduce you to branding your business, a free 5-day video series. So thank you so much, Dr. Rosche, for joining us on this Branding for Abundance podcast. And we look forward to bringing you on to another episode in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast episode today. I am super excited to see your growth in your business, career, money, and relationships. Be sure to check me out on Instagram at Dr. TK Psych, where you can find daily inspiration and tips to live your abundant lifestyle.